Hi, and welcome to IEMMA. I'm your host, Sameya Hito. Tonight we're going to hear from a side that you don't typically hear from. We're going to hear from David Denkin, who is both a California state official and represents CAMO. A lot of the time you don't realize what goes into keeping the fighters safe as well as what upholds the rules and regulations. So tonight we're going to get an inside look from David Denkin. Hello, welcome back. I am here with David Denkin, and he's going to explain to us a little bit about what he does. So I hear you kind of wear two hats as far as this kind of thing goes. So will you explain to us a little bit about both?
Well, currently I am working as a professional boxing referee and judge for the state of California, the California State Athletic Commission. I've been doing that for over 14 years. And today I'll be working in the aspects as a lead inspector for CAMO, which is the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization. They are the organization that supervises and oversees amateur mixed martial arts for the state of California under the California State Athletic Commission.
So now, do you like both aspects equally? Do you have one favorite over another, or are you just both very invested in?
I'm very invested in both of them because they both involve contact sports. Believe it or not, I was boxing my whole life. I took after my father, who's a three-time Hall of Famer, Marty Denkin. He was in the Rocky movies as a referee, Raging Bull, Muhammad Ali. And from that, when I was a police officer, I retired and I decided to get into boxing as a referee. I did fight as a little bit as a kid, but it didn't take off, so I decided to be in law enforcement as a police explorer and police officer, deputy sheriff. And then when I retired, boxing came up. And in 1998, they had the first ever school for professional boxing referees and judges. And I was of the over 100 people were in the class, and only 10 made it, graduated, and I was one of the 10. So I became a professional referee and judge, and I really love boxing because that was all my family was boxing. Mixed martial arts actually came into play probably about I would say 6 years ago or 5 years ago, when my sister became a mixed martial arts judge for professional for the state of California. She was trained a little bit under people like John McCarthy and people like Herb Dean, some of the classes that they taught by the state to help people get into mixed martial arts. So we started having mixed martial arts now in the family. Me and my dad were hardcore boxing. We were like, ooh, mixed martial arts. We didn't like it. It was just wrestling in high school, now glorified. But we caught on. We started enjoying it because we realized it was just as an enjoyment of contact sport as boxing. So my dad was the next one to become trained and become a judge in mixed martial arts. And then I decided, you know what, I like it, and I started as an inspector with CAMO 3 years ago. And recently I trained with John McCarthy as a referee and a judge for mixed martial arts.
That's quite an accomplishment in itself right there. Can you explain to us a little bit more about the safety of the fighters and how you ensure that?
Well, in boxing, my goal as a referee is number one is safety, and then rules and regulations is second. No one can foul or cheat. And then the fans are third. You got to make sure they get their money's worth in a fight, because you don't want no fighters like going in there, falling down and not wanting to fight. The fans pay for tickets. But the first is safety. And so as a referee, my goal is to make sure that a fighter, let's say if there's an exchange of punches and a fighter becomes defenseless, his hands drop, or he has his hands up but he's holding them together and taking numerous punches, that is not intelligent defense. We use the word intelligent defense. What is a defense that someone intelligently we use to stop punches from coming? If they're not doing that, then as a referee we need to stop the fight, because now they're receiving concussive blows, which can cause concussive injury and end their career in that fight.
Have you ever seen anything kind of like that happen, or have you not been there in time? What's the craziest thing that you've seen happen?
There have been fights where I think I could have been a second faster, where a fighter was hit and went down, and maybe I could have stopped it before he went down from the punch before, and then when he fell, the secondary injury they receive is when their head hits the canvas.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes that is more causing more injury than the punch itself. So yeah, I think I could have been quicker. I think all referees, we never are perfect. We're human, so we could be a second faster. Sometimes we're a second too fast, and we stop a fight too soon, and a fighter has a chance of actually recovering. And and like in world championships, you want to be careful on how quick you go in. You're talking about a world title here, belt being given. So there's after 14 years, I still can perfect my timing. I don't think there is any referee that could sit and say that they have everything down and they're perfect. Once you do that, then you become more possibility of making errors because you think you're flawless. You have to be ready to improve all the time. And in MMA, it's the same thing for referees. It involves cage fighting, where there's grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai, and boxing all together, which makes it even more complex.
Absolutely, and the fighters can never really leave the fight in the hands of the referee, because if it's up to them, they have to go with the best decision, which might not necessarily coincide with what they were thinking they were doing. You say someone's defending themselves intelligently or not, and maybe they feel they are, but they left it in your hands because they didn't stop anything. So that's definitely, it's a kind of a double-edged sword. You never know.
And it is, because we have fighters that when we stop fights that start arguing, hey, I was fine, but
Absolutely.
I don't want to take the chance. I would rather see a fighter get stopped early and fight again tomorrow than have him go and be transported in an ambulance, which I've seen happen in many shows with boxers and mixed martial artists. And that's hard to accept, because we don't know what's going to happen when he leaves there. He could go into a coma, or she, because we have female fighters, and be in it permanently. Unfortunately, my father, many years ago, he refereed the Lupi Pintor Johnny Owens fight, where Johnny Owens died in the ring from concussive blows. But the doctor and everyone checked him during the fight, and he was showing signs of being able to defend himself. He was communicating. We looked for different things, and he showed signs of being okay, but it was when he went down and hit his head on the canvas that he started bleeding internally in his brain. No one would have known that was coming. So it could happen.
What do you look for as far as to verify that someone is okay? When you mentioned that there are signs that you look for, what are those signs?
Well, I look at their responsiveness. If their speech becomes slurred, or they're taking a while to respond, while I'm refereeing, I might, if I break them and I see a guy's taking some hits and they tie up and I break them, I might look over and say, are you okay? If he looks at me with a glazed look, he doesn't respond, I know there's a communication problem. That means he's not taking in what I'm saying. So now I might have a problem as far as maybe having to stop the fight. Hands being up, again, that's a big one. If a fighter's not putting his hands up to stop a punch, who doesn't it's automatic human nature to put your hands up to stop a punch. If he's not doing that, or she, then I know I have a problem because of reflexes. And so communication, movement, that would be the main two.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned previously that it's this kind of a family business. It's sort of in the blood. Can you tell us a little bit more about that aspect of it? Your father, your sister, can you go into more detail with that?
Well, my father, who, believe it or not, is working tonight along with my sister, though my sister will be doing the amateur mixed martial arts as a judge. My dad will be judging both boxing and MMA. And I'll be the lead inspector for the mixed martial arts show. I was supposed to referee the boxing, but sometimes assignments, the way they work, they don't realize someone's here that they could put as a referee, so they had someone else come, which it happens. So I'm doing the one job tonight, but I have at Commerce Casino, I have in the past worked as a referee and then been a lead inspector with the amateur mixed martial arts. My dad was an amateur referee in the Navy. Back up. My dad was an amateur fighter in the Navy. He became a pro. He was a deputy sheriff for East LA Station and being a pro boxer. He had his nose broken so many times he decided to give up boxing. He actually trained the East LA Boys Club, all the fighters that used to be on the streets as gang members, and he trained people like the Pimentel brothers, Davila, all those guys, Baltazar fighters. They were all people that were under his wing. Ruben Navarro was one of his fighters that he trained. He was a manager, and at one time, from there, he became a referee and a judge professionally, but it was great because he was also able to become an executive officer and leave refereeing. So he actually ran boxing and wrestling in the state of California. He became a commissioner, which sat on the board that supervised the sport throughout California. And then during his time as executive officer, there was a layoff period, and he was laid off. And then he finally came back, and during the time he came back, the job was already closed. So what he did is he actually started training again. Many years in his 50s, I think he was training. And the interesting thing was, it was at that time Oscar De La Hoya was an amateur fighter. He actually trained Oscar De La Hoya before Oscar went to the Olympics. He has the first contracts that Oscar ever signed as a pro, or to be a pro, which would have been if he won the gold medal, if he lost the gold medal, or if he didn't even go to the Olympics. And then he had Reggie Johnson and David Kamal. Well, what happened was, it was for DeMay Boxing. He was working for a guy named Mr. DeMay. And what happened was Oscar's father decided to take Oscar, and that's when they went to Bob Arum. And so my dad then from there, after managing and training, went back to refereeing and judging. And as he gets older, he's now 77, the referee skills it's very difficult as you get older, so now he's a judge. So he's had a wide career, and during that time, he was inducted to 3 Hall of Fames, California and the, I think it would be the California Hall of Fame, the Jewish Hall of Fame, and the California State Boxing Hall of Fame.
So you have a lot to live up to. It sounds like you're already doing that, following in the footsteps.
Yes, but I don't think I will ever be like him. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I got to be in California Baby, the movie. Was it California Baby? California, not that. The movie with the girl boxer.
Oh, $1 Million Baby.
$1 Million Baby. Why do I want to say California? $1 Million Baby. And the interesting thing was, I got cut. So
there you go.
I don't have the career.
Listen, it's there somewhere. It's in there. It's in the archives.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully I can get that and show people that I'm really telling the truth.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Now, as far as what you look for, do you look for different things when you're refereeing boxing versus when you're in MMA? Or is it generally the same kind of things? Because I know the rules are different.
Well, as a professional referee and as someone who trained to be a referee in MMA and who supervises MMA, it's the same things. Again, going back to safeties first. We don't want any fighter in any of those sports to come out unable to fight again, so we protect them. Second is rules. We don't want anyone doing anything illegal. We don't want people to get an advantage to win a fight, so we make sure that we follow all the rules and we enforce them, just like law enforcement officers enforce the law. And then we have the fans. Again, when the fans they come and pay tickets to come watch these fights, so they want to get their money's worth. And we make sure the fighters fight. I mean, that's what they do. They're fighters. The only difference is in mixed martial arts, CAMO, California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts, they fight for free because they're amateurs. Just like USA Boxing, kids fight for free for boxing. They're learning. But professional boxing, they're getting paid to fight. So the fans deserve to get their money's worth.
All right, well, thank you so much, David. It was a pleasure learning everything about that,
thank you.
I can't wait to see you further on.
Well, I look forward to running into you again. Hopefully it won't be something like newsworthy controversy that will put me in trouble.
No, absolutely not.
All right, great.
Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Take it away.
All right, my fans, here we go. Now in the ring, the rerounds of mixed martial arts in the heavyweight division. Introducing our referee in charge of this bout, Mylan Ayer. And now, introducing to you first, fighting out of the blue corner, he is wearing black trunks. He is training out of Poa Fighters in San Bernardino, California. He weighed in 210 pounds. His record, no wins with 3 losses. Trimmed in black, he is training out of Millennia MMA in Rancho Cucamonga by way of Montclair, California. He weighed in 206 pounds. He brings to the ring an undefeated record, 2 wins with no losses. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Nick All right, fans, here we go. 3 rounds of mixed martial arts in the heavyweight division.
Well, Jeff, these 2 heavyweights look primed and ready to go. You look at Banks, 2-0 record. Marshall 0-2. Marshall again out of the blue corner. Banks out of the red corner. And we're going to see, we talked about these guys before. They're toe-to-toe and strikers and grapplers, and we're going to see how this one plays out.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is these fighters also having to make the necessary in-fight adjustments. And a lot of times that's dictated by how your opponent attacks you.
And Banks with the takedown on Marshall right off the bat. Marshall with a left arm over and wrapping around the neck of Banks. You know, we look at the CAMO and what they've done here with mixed martial arts. They've really brought this sport to the forefront.
The expansion, too, and the interest of MMA has been generated nationally, but CAMO, as you mentioned, doing a great job getting local fighters involved in the sport in the amateur ranks as they eventually hope to turn professionals.
A half mount by Banks on top of Marshall. Marshall with the left arm looking for the choke. That's been the mode of operation thus far in this first of what's scheduled for 3 rounds. And Marshall looks like a strong heavyweight. Hard to get out of that.
Well, he's trying to choke him out, and actually Banks in the more dominant position initially, but he's had a hard time getting out of that headlock.
So some grappling here, and right now, as you mentioned it, Marshall underneath, but he's got the more promising position right now on Banks.
Well,
Banks able to get his head out of that choke.
Well, the one thing Banks wants to do is to try to get some jabs into the middle part of his midsection to try to get him to drop that arm or to let go of that chokehold.
So now we go to a little ground and pound. Banks with the left hand straight to the head on Marshall. And Jeff Tolcher, Marshall took a bit of a pounding there.
Well, it gives credence to the old adage, saved by the bell. He was saved by the end of that round. And one of the things Banks was able to do was to get out of that chokehold. And once he was able to get out of that particular situation, he was able to unleash about 7 or 8 punches to do some damage and take the first round.
Well, clearly, after Marshall was in control for the most part, in spite of the half mount by Banks, Banks ended up getting the better of the exchange and perhaps stealing that round from that man right there, Edmond Marshall.
And the margin of error in the amateur ranks is so small. Fights not only can end quickly, but they can also turn quickly. And that's one of the adjustments that you'll see from these fighters when they go to their corners. They talk to their trainers. Trainers are giving them instruction on what to do because there is not a lot of experience. The fighters now have to take what their trainers tell them and apply it to the ring.
Myron Ayre, our referee in charge. Telling Banks, Marshall, make sure that mouthpiece is in. And here we go, round number 2. Marshall going straight to his back. That was not a knockdown or a takedown. And then the heel of Banks to the midsection of Marshall. Not effective. You know, for somebody who doesn't see mixed martial arts very often, this almost looks comical with the way the fighters approach, you know, this grappling part of the fight. Some fighters like to strike and stay up, but these 2 fighters clearly satisfied with the ground and pound.
And you think that it's more of the heavyweights, the larger type fighters that would want to stand up and go toe-to-toe and not get on the ground, but that's not been the case in this fight, as now Banks unleashing everything he's got.
Well, and Marshall not defending himself clearly, so you have to wonder how much longer Myron Ayre, the referee in charge, will let it go.
Well, the hard part too, and they stop it, is the strikes to the back of the head, but this one's over.
And as a fighter now, as Marshall will move to 0-3 at the amateur level, how much beating do you want to take before you call it a night?
Well, at that point, you're almost at the mercy of the official. The official has to make that determination. Once the fighter stops defending himself, then the referee steps in and it's over.
Well, this first of 3 scheduled didn't take long. We'll get the official time in just a moment. CAMO, California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization. As you look at the winner, Nicholas Banks. This fight stopped by Myron Ayer due to strikes.
Now you could certainly see the difference in the styles too, Fred. 2 different types of fighters. Banks looked like the more polished MMA fighter in that situation. Marshall was on the defensive pretty much throughout this bout.
Yeah, and the only thing that he really managed to do was in round number 1 was get a couple of temporary chokeholds on Nicholas Banks that Banks was able to get his way out of and end up ultimately winning the fight.
And that may have been Marshall's one chance to win the fight. Once Banks was able to get out of there, there's a good look at him there, Nicholas Banks. But once Banks was able to get out of that chokehold, he pretty much took control of the fight and winds up getting the victory.
Banks out of Montclair, California. 5'11", good size heavyweight. And we're just about ready. There's Edmond Marshall out of the blue corner.
Ladies and gentlemen, at 59 seconds of round number 2, the preparation start. Myron Ayer stops the contest due to a tap out from strikes. Our winner in the red corner, he is still undefeated, Nick.
Banks and Batiste Supa, as I was instructed to say. And we're just here to congratulate Nick on his win.
Thank you.
And ask him a little bit, we want to know, what did you do specific to train for this? Did you know your opponent's weak points or anything like that? Did you do anything in specific?
You know what, actually, we were training for this guy, Brock Combs. For some reason, he had to back out of the fight, and then they switched the opponent again, named Mike Hope. He backed out of the fight, and then they got this guy, Edmond Marshall, yeah. So then I kind of, last minute kind of thing, so yeah, today I found out I was fighting Edmond Marshall, so it wasn't really any adjustments I had to make. Just kind of went in there and kind of felt it out and reacted to whatever happened, you know.
So this was like extremely, you didn't really have a game plan, you just kind of went in there hoping what you had been practicing for was going to do the trick.
Exactly, yeah, just kind of prepared and see what happens, you know.
Well, what was the regular fight plan? I mean, what did you do to prepare as far as diet, nutrition, things like that?
You know what, as far as diet, nutrition, just try to eat good, nothing too bad. I didn't have to cut too much weight. I walk around at like 215, and the fight was at 205, so I only had to cut about 10 pounds of weight, which wasn't too bad. Just eat healthy, and then, you know, just 5 days a week training, you know, running, rounds of sparring, rolling, you know, just working hard.
So then you cut to 205, but and that the weigh-in was yesterday?
The weigh-in was yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday? So how much did you gain in that time?
Okay, so check this out. I wasn't notified that the weigh-ins were yesterday.
Oh.
So we had to show up early today and weigh in. So we had actually weigh in at 210 today. Normally I'm about 215, so I only had to cut about 5 pounds. So I was actually weighed in at 210 today, yeah.
Okay,
So.
awesome. All right, so you made it then.
Yeah, I made it. Yeah.
Awesome. So how'd you feel about the fight tonight? Were you really secure in it? Did you feel good?
I felt good. I really didn't know what this guy was about, so I just kind of, like I said, went in there, kind of felt it out. I felt good though, I won, so I just went in there and I saw the takedown, took the takedown, got side position, almost TK'd him in the first round. Second round came out and he threw like a spinning back kick and he fell and just wound up TK'ing him.
That's what I was gonna say. I did notice at one point it looked like he tried to throw a kick and I didn't know if he lost his footing or if it was something you did, and I wanted to ask you about that. Was it a legitimate slip?
Yeah, he straight up, he just slipped. He just slipped and fell, so I was like, okay,
I'll take it.
Exactly, yeah.
And what exactly do you do? Tell us a little bit about your position.
Well, I'm basically one of the head trainers there. I'm one of the partners of the owners of the facility. I bring in different coaches in different areas of the arts, like boxing coaches, wrestling coaches, Muay Thai coaches, jiu-jitsu coaches, and just depending on the opponents we're going to fight is how we'll kind of guide the fighter to work with these different coaches.
Gotcha. So you had a lot of faith in your fighter tonight, obviously.
Oh yeah, I was 100% confident. I was more confident than him.
Yeah.
Way more confident.
That's always good. You gotta have somebody backing you up and supporting you at all times. So
When we walked into the arena, he looked over at the arena and he was freaking out on how big it was.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh my God, look how big this is!" And we were just laughing, dude.
So then you're not a ham, I take it.
No.
Do you want some of mine? Because I love it. I'll walk in the middle and be like,
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
share.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that wraps us up here for IEMMA with Nick Banks and Batiste Supa. Join us next time and see all the thrills and spills on the ring. Thanks to All Star Promotions for putting on a wonderful MMA match full of action and thrills at the lovely Westin Bonaventure in Los Angeles. Tune in next time to see more of All Star Promotions on IEMMA.